All right, welcome back. This is a Just Offside podcast, and today myself and Mike are very happy to have a special guest. And we are just joking off camera that it's the first non-professional soccer player we're having on here as a guest to do an interview. But it's great to have you on. We got Mike Newell, who's a leader amongst one of the TFC supporting groups, and we're so happy to have you, Mike. How you doing?
I'm good, Keith. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm honored. I'm the first non-professional soccer player guest of all the people you chose me, so I appreciate it.
No, we're really happy to have you. You know, you have a great background with the club, and we just want to get in to see what it's all about and how you got started with that. So no, we make it really pumped for this one. It's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love that. Yeah. So one of the things that we definitely thought about with you as a guest was what got you into the game and what made you fall in love with the sport in general, right? So whether it was like a certain player or a club or your parents or anything like that. So maybe speak on that.
Yeah, for sure. For me, I didn't have parents that were into the game or anything like that. They, traditionally my family's actually really been into cricket and West Indies cricket. So that was really sort of the sporting love. So my actual first sport that I loved was baseball, based off sort of that sort of loose kind of transition. But football really started for me in a way that a lot of people in sort of my age demographic would have fallen in love. We stole satellite, essentially. If you're of a certain age, you could go over to a man on the corner and he'd get you a Rogers box, and you'd be able to get like a game a week on certain channels. So whether you got like TLN,
that's what I was about to say.
Yeah, or if you got, sometimes TSN back, and they would have like a Premier League game, but it would be like, 3 days later.
I was gonna turn them live. Yeah,
exactly. It was never live. It took I didn't get live games until I was a teenager, but that's kind of how I felt it. And I fell in love with Man United. Obviously, they were winning the league when I was, 7, 8, 9, and that's an impressionable age to get a supporter. And I loved Eric Cantona. I love the fact that, he played with a pop collar and was just, he scored that chip and he's just, look at me, look how great. So, you fall in love with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And for me, it was the only kid that I liked soccer in sort of my neighborhood, right? Like everybody was basketball or hockey.
And you were in Toronto, right?
Yeah, I was in Toronto, and then I moved to Mississauga, sort of closer to my teenage years. But that's basically how I fell into love with the game and followed it and supported it. And obviously when I was growing up, there was no TFC, there was no Canadian Premier League, so there was no local team to really support. I mean, the Lynx were around a little bit, but they weren't around for long, right? So it was really trying to follow the game overseas, and that's how I fell in love with the game and United and things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that perfectly leads into what we were going to ask next. And it was talking about TFC becoming a club and having something, like you said, growing up in the city, not having anything to support. And how did it originally start with TFC? Were you day one season ticket holder, or were you just
Yeah, so I had a chance to get season tickets day one because I was in university at the time. And they were put $20, or what was it, $20 or $50 down for a deposit, and I was like, nah. I was, I'm I'd rather take at that time, you're I could take that money, go to the club, go to whatever. So no, I didn't get season tickets the first couple of years, and to be honest, I was kind of halfway on it, because when you love European football and you watch European football, you're kind of like MLS, you were kind of do I really want to go,
especially back then, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I went to a game. I didn't go to the first 2 home games. I think I didn't go. I went to the game Dicchio scored the first goal, so I was there.
You're at that.
Wow.
That was my first ever TFC game. That was my first ever. My buddy got tickets, and we went, and we were in the West End, and obviously Dicchio scores the goal, and I once the seat cushion started flying, and I'd never seen anything like that in my life.
I was watching that game on TV.
Yeah, exactly. I've gone to Blue Jay games. I've gone to, all these different sporting events, Raptor game, whatever. And I'd never seen anything like an energy like that in a crowd. Yeah. And you know, if you were there and for that first year, because like, although the team didn't do very well, you know, the energy in the place, how could you not get kind of sucked into that? So that's really how it started for me. I was apprehensive at first. I was kind of like, okay, I don't know if this is going to be, you know, what I think it's going to be. And then once you got there in the stands itself, that's when it's like, okay, you know.
That's when you know it's real, right? You can
exactly.
feel it.
Yeah, and the funny thing was, I once I was in the stands, like you obviously, if you've seen a European game and you've seen an MLS game, especially back then, you're like, the quality level is, you know, but I didn't care. You didn't even care.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't even care. It was just the energy in the stadium and the fact that there was a team that was representing my city, right? That was the coolest thing. And I was in after that.
It's amazing.
And then obviously Toronto went through a handful of tough years at the start. So when you were supporting them and you finally like jumped on, and I think when you talked about maybe off camera about supporting United as well and seeing those glory years, and then you start supporting like a TFC that's not winning. How did it feel once the club started developing and you saw like the progress actually take place?
Yeah, I won't lie, those years were tough. The first maybe like 2 years, you're kind of like, okay, well, it's an expansion team, you kind of expect it, right? But the problem is that the turnover was so much, right? Like they were hiring and firing managers. It felt like you couldn't really get a connection to a ton of players because they were coming in, coming out all the time. And you just didn't, after like maybe the second or third year, you're kind of like, okay, what's the plan? Right? Like, what's the plan to, like, how do we get like a Keith McAboo? Like, how do we get young Toronto guys into the team and being successful and things like that? I just didn't feel like there was ever like a plan. So, you know, when we started Kings of the North, the supporter group that I helped found, you know, we founded it after the year that this team started 0-9. Right. So that was
is that 2011?
That might be 2012. I'm pretty sure it's 2012.
2012?
It might be 2011. It might be 2011. But like, no, 2012 we formed. So, you know, that like people were like, why would you want to set up a supporter group for a team this bad? Like, why would you know what I mean? And people would look at us like we're crazy. Because they're like, okay, why? Even the club, when we went to the club and said like, hey, we want to do this and here's our plan. And we had talked about, you know, what we wanted to do. And at that time, we were setting up in 127, the northwest corner. And even people at the club were like, why do you want to do, like, why?
You're saying too? Wow.
Yeah, because they were just, well, I mean, like for them, right? It was just like, you know, okay, there's already U sector, there's already red patch. Like, why do you like, and like, why do you want to do this? And then we just like, look, like it's either you quit or you kind of double down and just be like, at some point, this team's going to get it right. And you want to be there when they do.
I do.
Exactly. And obviously that came a lot later than we expected. But it came, right? So it was one of those things where, you know, when we did it, we were kind of like, okay, well, if we're going to do it, like go all in, right? Don't sort of half-ass it in a way. So that's why we created this.
Even at that time, I remember conversations having as players, we'd be like, because obviously we weren't winning at that time. There's those tough, dark days we had in those 2011, 2012 years, but there's still support there at the stadium. And we always said to ourselves, we're like, you imagine if this club is winning, like what it's going to be like in the stadium if we're winning. Like that's always us young guys used to say, like how crazy it would be if we're winning, how the city would get behind this team. So like I was so happy to see it for the fans especially, and getting to be there that night when they won. It was just like, the fans deserve this a lot because they've been with this club stuck behind them for a long time. They've seen so much. I was definitely for them. Yeah, for you guys, I'm sure.
Yeah,
sure. That night when they won it was amazing.
So
we were lucky. We were there. Yeah, we were both there. Luckily, we were there the year before when they lost in the shootout, which was cold and miserable. And
I was in the Capo stand. I was in the Capo stand for the 16 final, and I lost feeling in my toes. Probably just after the first 15 of extra time. Like I was just like my toes were just I couldn't feel my toes. So
that was a tough one.
It was hard to keep going, but obviously when they won, it was incredible. It's one of those things where in the game, Stephen Fry was playing so well and he was stopping all these chances and we were dominating them if you remember, right? We were dominating them in the first half, right? We should have had like 2 or 3. It should have been done at halftime, right? It should have been decided at halftime. And then we went 0-0 and Kalen Carr, as a former MLS player, was in the stands with us in Kings of the North. like doing his
Oh yeah, so I did that little
yeah, he was doing that little thing with MLS, and he was in the stands with us, and I'm like, I kind of was like, man, you got to be kidding me that we're gonna do this again. Like we're gonna end up 0-0, and they're gonna drag this out to penalties and do it again. And he was just like, nah, man, you're gonna score. Just watch. You're all over them. You're gonna score. And then obviously Josie scored, and the place went nuts. And I lost my $20 beer. I threw it up in the air. And
we all did,
everybody lost their $20.
Sure.
Like that point is like $20 well spent, whatever. So
that's awesome. Well, I wanted to also talk about like becoming like an ultra. And I think like you touched upon it, like going to the club and asking to form it and like getting like that kind of like weird look of like why. And I kind of wanted to, I've been around here and I've been to games in like Belgium and Sweden, and I've gone to lots of games here in England, and there's not really like a leader like that starts it that I've seen in a couple of games that I've been to. Especially I go to the Emirates a lot to watch Arsenal, and there is none of that. But what is it like being that like that guy or like the leader of it?
Like you know what, it's great, like in the sense that, you know, whether you're like I helped form the group. I by no means say I'm like the overall leader, right? Like there's a lot of people that help to build the culture and build the, you know, our supporter group in particular. I can speak from a sense of like leading, like being a capo, being on the stand in the stand. It's a crazy feeling because, you know, you were talking about the whole build up to winning the championship, going to 16, going to 17. Well, there are games I didn't see. The first time I watched the game was on a repeat on TV because I had my back turned to the game, right? Because you know, you're a capo, right? So you don't see, like, you maybe get a snippet of a goal, like if you glance over your shoulder or something like that. But your job is to make sure that everybody else is kind of having a good time. Everybody else is sort of making sure that they're supporting the guys on the pitch. So in a lot of cases, what I see is people's reactions to things that are happening on the pitch. You kind of see the game in a different way. And it's kind of amazing to watch it through people's joy, through people's frustration. You know, just like, for example, in the 2016 in this East final against Montreal, when Haglund scored the header, they had temporary stands in the south end
at the top. Cup. We were there as well.
And I actually had buddies up there from work that were up there, and at one point, you know, everybody was bouncing, right? They just scored and we're back in the tie, and that temporary stand started swaying, like it started going like this. And like one of those moments where I was just looking at everybody and I'm like, oh my god, like this is nuts. Like those little clocks in the south end that are on the top of the scoreboard, just at the and sort of that concourse, they were rattling back and forth. People were bouncing and jumping and they were rattling back and forth, and it was just like I had never experienced an energy like that in the stand. And those kind of moments are worth it, right? All the sort of hard work you have to do, the things behind the scenes people don't see, you know, like the trying to get people organized for seats, trying to get banners and tifos and flags made and all that kind of stuff. The stuff that you see as an end product, but don't see the work that goes into making all that stuff, makes it all worth it. And it's a lot of time. It like at one point, you know, I had to step back because it almost becomes a second job, right? Like it becomes a thing. Like right after work, I'm like, okay, now I gotta organize people to do this painting session, or I gotta get people's tickets for this, or right. So it's so I mean it's a lot of work, but it's once you see sort of everybody enjoying it and having a great time, it's really fun.
That's amazing. We were at that game in Montreal as well. I think we went to like all the games in the build up to that final. And
that was
Keith and I were bouncing.
I've never seen a stadium like that ever. That Montreal night was crazy.
Well, I don't think it's hard to, because people always ask you, what's your favorite game you've ever been to at BMO? And I'll always actually tell people, it was the year before, it was the 2015 game where Javinko scored that goal against the Red Bulls to get us to the playoffs for the first time. Because that was the same night the Jose Bautista bat flip happened.
Right, that was a crazy
the same night. So that was a crazy night. Just in the city was just lit. The whole night the city was just lit, right? So but that night against Montreal, that was the night I kind of knew the city could be a football city, really. Like, you know what I mean? Like just the energy, everybody's focus was on that game. And you know, the club hopefully will get back to that soon, sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's just one of those nights that you can't, like, you just, if you were there, and you can just sort of say it. And if you were there, you could see people who smile and know they were there. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember going like early days when I think it was Keith was playing. We were there, and I think we watched like them against the Whitecaps or something. And like even like the development of the stadium and making it more of like a better atmosphere place that can like kind of hold in the sounds and create that intensity of like a European stadium. I think like just that rise of it and everything, like you said, and having that extra stand. We had buddies up there as well, and like they fell a couple rows. It was just nuts.
When Mike talking about the stadium, did they talk to you guys about anything when they're adding additions to the stadium, fans, like fan groups at all?
Yeah. So yeah, that would have been going into the 2015 season. So like 2014, 2015. We were in the northwest corner. We were in 127. So Keith, you remember that's where the players the player suite used to be.
Yeah.
Remember, like where the players suite were, like if you were injured or you weren't playing, or family members would be up there.
Family section,
So we were at the front of that section originally.
Mm-hmm.
And then they approached us to basically say, listen, this is what we're doing. We're going to put the canopy up. We're going to expand seating. This is what we're doing. And we want you guys to come to the South End and have all the supporter groups in the South End. And at first, I'll be honest, I didn't want to move. I liked where we were, and I thought it would be, you know, a place where we could grow and continue to build sort of a really interesting thing in a North Stand.
Yeah.
But as we sort of gone along and saw what they were trying to do, and sort of the idea of keeping all that noise in and having that one sort of section drive the rest of the stadium, then, you know, we eventually agreed to the move and did it. But we were sort of, I don't want to say we were like consulted. It wasn't like they were asking us for our opinion. They're basically like, here's what we're doing. Are you coming or not? Right. So yeah, in that way, we were kind of, you know, told about the plans ahead of time.
And I think it kind of worked out, because there's some games during those 3 years when TFC was at the top where like it honestly felt like the field was on a slant when they're attacking that way. Always. You knew in the second half we were down a goal, down 2 goals. You knew they were coming back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. I think I've seen that in Italy does that a lot with the curva, and they have all the fans just like kind of on that one end. And I saw that I was in Naples at a Napoli game and saw and witnessed that. And I was like, everybody just sits like the nobodies, just me. I sat in like the middle, and I was like, this is a great seat, but they were all back there behind going nuts for like the entire, I was like, insane, but it makes the atmosphere, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
I think it's awesome that you touched upon like the behind the scenes and what it takes to make BMO look the way it does and creating that atmosphere. One thing I did know was you obviously maybe didn't mention, but you have the Tunnel Club, and what exactly is the Tunnel Club? Why was it created? Like, what was its purpose?
I'm assuming you talk about the post game show that I do sometimes.
Yes.
So yeah, that was developed with Jeffrey Nesker, Michael Singh, some of the guys from Waking the Red, from the site and podcast. And it was kind of one of those things where, you know, during the pandemic, especially with the team, you know, not here, and sort of soccer media and the coverage in this country kind of dipping a bit. There just wasn't a lot of opportunity for people to talk about the game afterwards. Like you guys are on Twitter, you see the sort of banter afterwards. There's people that are passionate and opinionated about the club and where it's going. And I just, you know, thought like, hey, why don't we put something together that's either a pre or post game show to talk about these things? Because there really wasn't. I'm a big fan of sport radio. I really love sport radio, and I don't profess to be any kind of journalist or anything like that. There are world-class journalists out there that are way more skilled at that. But I just thought like a place where fans can come and sort of just voice their opinions about the game. You know, we were all passionate about the sport, so that's really where that came from. I can't profess to come up with a name tunnel club either. That's totally a Jeffrey P. Nesker innovation, but it was really just an opportunity to talk the game. So from a fan's perspective, and allow fans to sort of call in or chime in and have their perspectives, whatever they are. Some are good perspectives, some are not good, right? But like at the same time, I think there's always space to have that conversation. I think that's what also drives a club, is people talking about it and having opinions about it. And especially during the pandemic when you don't have home games and you don't have reporters there to be able to get those different things from the players and from the coaching staff and things like that. So you need to still have an outlet for fans to be able to really be passionate about their clubs. So that's why that's how that came along.
No, I like that because like you see in well, I know just because I follow with Arsenal, like they have the Arsenal fan TV. When you see these fans these guys are so passionate about their club. They have united view and all that stuff. So I think it's great. And like that's like the first I've seen or heard of anything with TFC having something like that, which I think is really important to have for fans, which is really dope. And I think is really cool. Yeah.
I think it's good to like debrief as well for like the mental as well. Like when you watch a game, like the emotions that you're going through, and then to not be able to like spurt them out after a game, as most people do when watching sports, whether it's like just tweeting it and live tweeting it, but like actually saying it and talking about the match. And obviously, like you said, no one's got like expert analysis that's going into it, but we all have our opinions. We all have our opinions.
And that's not it's not the point to have expert analysis, right? Like you have a Christian Jack for that. You have a John Molnar. You have like people that are really great journalists that do that. The way I look at the show as an opportunity to fans to be able to express what they're feeling, whether it's mainly the season has been frustration. But I'll point back to the Miami game a few weeks ago, and the reffing decisions and the obvious Schaffelberg goal. But that was a perfect show to have at that moment, because I think everybody had to just release that, especially I think because that was one of the first games where you could honestly say that yes, TFC lost the game, but you could say like that was a really good performance. You could see that they were, pouring everything into that match. And I think fans needed that opportunity to, one, just go have a go at the ref and the reffing crew, but also be able to say like, I was really proud of the team. They were amazing tonight. They didn't deserve to lose. And I think that's actually, since then they've catapulted into a couple of wins and are now making their run in the Voyageurs Cup. So I think that the show holds a purpose. I mean, we try to run it every game. We can't sometimes, especially if it's a home game, because I'm at the stadium, Jeffrey's at the stadium, Michael's reporting on the game. So it's hard to sometimes do it when it's a home game, because sometimes like I'm the capo for the night. So I'm dead by the time the game is over. But we try to host it every game, especially the away games, and get people to sort of say their piece. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, me and Keith definitely do that after a couple of games. We just give each other a call and we just talk about it, just to air it out and just see how it's going. But yeah, it's useful. It's useful. There's another thing that I wanted to bring up, and it goes along with the atmosphere. And I know that you're one of the leaders. I believe you're one of the leaders. I've done a little bit of research, not loads. So that's why I definitely want to bring it up and have you talk about it. But it's the TFC Biopic Fan Coalition.
Yeah.
So I watched the interview with you, and you said pretty much last year that it was like really in its infant stages, and we have a little bit of an idea of it. But for someone that is listening that has no idea about it, can you maybe just explain the start of it and how it's maybe progressed over the year?
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that. So I helped found it, and really what it is it's a bunch of fans like myself who are racialized fans or fans of color, that want to do a couple of things. One, I think when we all sat down to chat, one of the things we identified was making BMO a safe space for people of color to watch the game, to feel like they can support their club. And this is not to say that BMO had an exorbitant amount of problems with that prior or anything like that, but there's always opportunities to make situations better, to make improvements, to acknowledge those fans, right? So that was one of the things that we talked about. And obviously this was born from sort of a lot of the movements that happened last year, the death of George Floyd and many other things. Really, we were spurred on partly by Black Players for Change, and Justin Morrow's been a really big sort of influence and supporter of ours, and really helping us get started. But we're really looking at also just bringing more racialized voices to football, right? To be able to be out there and talk about the game. And Keith, obviously, you setting up this podcast and starting that with Mike is amazing, and that's kind of what we're doing with the House on Lakeshore podcast, and doing things like the Tunnel Club, and just getting more faces and people of color to talk about the game. And I felt like that was something that was missing here. And then another component, obviously, is trying to getting into communities and doing some work there. Over the past year, we've built a really great relationship with TFC and with MLSE in general. And they've been great working with us to implement some changes, some suggestions that we have. The big one so far that we really were able to get out there was around Emancipation Day. The videos with Justin, and getting obviously Ash and Toast and Theo Bear out in Vancouver to really have the club push that message and push some of these things that are happening. Even now with National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, really getting the club to I mean, these were things that, that the club is traditionally tried to do, but now obviously amplify that voice and get that out there to the fans, and get fans to understand why it's important. And why this, one thing that we got when we started the group was, you don't want politics in your sports, right? Like that's that old adage of, just kick the ball, just have, but I think there's a recognition now amongst a lot of people that, athletes have a platform to be able to express things and get things out there to a broader audience that, myself, I may not have that same capacity, right? So obviously having the club back us is really big, and we're still looking to grow and still looking to improve and find areas where we can help, and I think that's sort of the next phase going into the off season is going to be, how can we continue to impact change both inside the stadium and outside, whether that's through fundraisers or things like that. So more to come from the coalition, but obviously we're going to keep the podcast going. Myself, Sean Levy, are on the podcast, and we're two Black men talking about football, and I think it's important that we have more, like I said, more people of color talking about the game and bringing their sort of own life perspectives into that conversation.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's really good. I love that.
Great. Something I think that was needed, and it's great that you guys took the initiative to get that going, especially during those tough time we had last year for everybody. So yeah, no, I was really excited when I heard about it. I was really excited that it was getting done, and seeing all the players also getting behind you guys. The club, MLSC, is great. So it's honestly awesome to hear. Yeah,
thank you.
And then at the end, we can plug your podcast to get our listeners to jump on it as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think like having that conversation, like you said, using athletes like their platform to do positive things. Like, I think anybody who says like, oh, don't bring politics in sport, or like tells athletes not to get involved, it's like, why not? Like, what? It's two separate things. Watch the game and enjoy that, and then do that. Like just.
Well, I think the if last year taught us anything, is that sports are inevitably tied to what's happening in the world, right? Like you can't just look at football and say, well, okay, football has nothing to do with politics at all, right? The history of football is littered with politics being infused into the game. So from that perspective, but also I think, whether it was the beginning of the MLS's back tournament last year in the 8 minutes and 46 seconds, whether it was, the league stopping play at one point, I think there is a growing awareness that you can't just continue to treat athletes as just athletes. They're human beings. They have emotions. They live outside of the white lines of a football pitch, right? And I think that, and and furthermore, it's sort of this next fight about online abuse of footballers that's happening all around the world. Right? How can you say that politics are not in football when that's happening on a match by match basis? Not even, I can't even say day by day, it's match by match basis. So from that perspective, that's why I think the fight is going on. And I think you see more footballers around the world using that platform to try to affect that change, whether it's through governments, whether it's through footballing organizations, CONCACAF, UEFA, CONMEBOL, or FIFA itself. That's where the fight is. It's the push to have those bodies recognize that change is needed, and to take these sort of issues very seriously, because it will affect the game down the road. It will affect the quality of football down the road. I think it will affect the mental health of players down the road, and that sort of erodes what we love about the game, right? If players no longer feel safe to play the game, then I think that is inevitably a threat and a harm to the game down the road.
100%.
Definitely plays like a mental factor. Like if you're going into a game in a certain away day, maybe a hostile environment plays on your mind. So, and I think like, especially what we've seen with England in the last Euros, what those young kids went through, just like, it's insane.
But again, like it's a testament to the way things are now. Not to say that things are perfect, but the strength, because they know people back them, right? They know there are people out there backing them, and they know that they can speak their mind. And although, you're going to get people that are always going to tell you to shut up and dribble or shut up and kick the ball, there's also other people out there that are going to tell you, you know what, you need to keep doing this because you are impacting change. Like to me, Marcus Rashford is one of the most important footballers in the world right now, not because of what he's 100%. Always doing on the pitch, but the things that he is doing off the pitch, for families, for people in England and the UK right now. And are you really going to tell him to shut up and dribble? Like, no, right? Like he's making sure that kids can eat. So I think that's incredibly important. And if you have those footballers that are on that stage that can use that platform to make that kind of change, to force a government to go back on a bad policy, then, I mean, why would you want your footballers to just shut up and dribble?
100%. I'm at a primary school over here, and I don't know the exact percentage, but loads of my kids rely on the free school meals during like the lunchtime, and what the government were giving was just, it wasn't enough. It was honestly a joke. So like seeing at that time Rashford use his platform to do that made a massive impact on just like my little community of where my school is, and just even like the borough itself. So like when he was doing all of that, we were all just like, I've been behind him, like you said. I think he's most impactful because of what he's done here, and I've seen it. But if we have more of that, then like you said, it causes the change.
Yeah, and I'll even point, here in Canada, I'll point to D-Row and what he's doing with both with his foundation, and with his academy, and being able to get young kids from Scarborough playing the game, but also doing it in a safe manner, and helping the community push along, and some of the work that he's doing, and Rick Titus is doing with his programs as well at the grassroots level. I think there's a lot of great work happening, and footballers, both present and past, are really starting to pick that up. And as a coalition, as fans, if we can support them in any way, whether it's just getting the word out there or volunteering at events, we'd love to do that, because I think that that's a small way that we can say thank you to them for using their platform to make our society better.
Definitely. Okay, so we're going to shift the conversation a little bit. I see now you said that you're born and bred Toronto, moved to Mississauga. We see that you're currently living in Hamilton. And need to know, how amazing is it to actually see now a CPL team come to Hamilton and be, as you're, people, when they get the visuals, they're going to see you're in the Forge sweater. So how does it feel to have a team in Hamilton?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, disclosure, I worked for the club for a year and about a half. So yeah, no, it's great. Obviously, the Canadian Premier League was desperately needed, I think, in this country, for young footballers to have a place to go. It's another route. It's another option. for players, and obviously in a community like Hamilton, it's great. And obviously it helps that they've won the 2 championships in the league's history. But I think also just from across the country, I think you people get to experience professional football and watch players develop, and as this league goes from strength to strength. And like I said, the league isn't perfect yet. There's things that the league still needs to do and will do. But from a community perspective, it's great to have the club there. You know, I now live in Hamilton. I moved there this summer, and I'm you know, a 5-minute walk from the stadium. So it's great on a match day to just walk around the ground and be right there. But it's just it's a great thing to watch sort of young guys, you know, get their career started and have an opportunity. And, you know, the next step is now watching them move to another level, because the league is already, you know, it makes no pretensions about what it is. It's a development league. It's an opportunity. So to watch some of those young players now take the next step in their careers, whether it's MLS, Europe, you know, somewhere else in North America or Central America, you know, it's an opportunity that was not there for players, and you know, it's great to see it. And you know, I don't know, I'm not a professional player, so I can't answer from that perspective. I don't know, Keith, if you have any sort of thoughts on that, but you know, from what I've seen, you know, it's an opportunity for those players to get valuable minutes professionally in a stable environment.
Yeah, all I've heard is good things about the league, and of course, like you're saying, this is something Canada I think needed for the youth soccer, from guys from like 16, 17 and up, to have that that little step before the MLS, the TFCs, the Europes, all that stuff. I think it's massive. We had Chris Manella on the pod, and he said he was surprised of the level of play in the league. So I think for it to be at infant stages and hearing him talk about how glowing it is and the quality of players they have in the league, I think it's going to be huge for Canada soccer and development of young players, which I think, as we already see, we're already making some moves and on the rise now, but I think this league is definitely going to help for sure, 100%.
Yeah, I think it makes such an impact when you have like a team, and especially like surrounding area. Like if you're Toronto FC, you almost kind of have to be like happy with that going on, because that development, and it's like a pool, like you can almost just pick from those clubs that are surrounding.
So it's funny because I'm not sure how TFC feel about it, to be perfectly honest. Like originally, I guess when Bill Manning was asked about the league, there was kind of skepticism, but I mean, I think that was when the league hadn't kicked the ball yet, right? They didn't know what it would be. I think now, I mean, the CPL teams are not a threat to TFC at the moment. You know, obviously we just watched York United TFC, and saw the quality level between the two obviously is different level. But I think what you get is out of that game. I looked at somebody like Didi Absi. I looked at a guy like Max Ferrari. You know, these are guys that can make the jump. Like you can see the quality of these players immediately. And you know, at Forge, I look at a player like Eleman Cisse, who when he signed with the club, you know, no one knew it was. We sent him straight from I believe from his club team, I believe in Senegal. And how he has grown into a player that essentially cannot be dropped by Bobby Smirniotis in his side right now is quite incredible, right? And you see that all across the league with different players who have gotten an opportunity to step up in competition, to grow as footballers and as people, and hopefully now it's the next step of making that move to another level. And then eventually the goal is to get some of these guys on the national team and get them to contribute, which is going to be tough because the national team right now is stacked. Right? Like, but that's the point, right? I think it's to drive that competition for spots on the national team.
But it's also good too to see the sport. I was watching and saw some highlights. I think it's specific. I saw play the fans they have out there. And, I saw York 9 obviously in Hamilton, but it's good that they're seeing the support as well from fans in those areas and all over Canada, which is really good too, to help grow the game as well.
Absolutely.
I think it's amazing for you as well to just kind of somewhat start supporting Forge right away and then be successful. I think that's like somehow the world working out in your favor after supporting Toronto.
I mean, look, I'll always have a place for Forge now, obviously now that I live there, but you know, working for the club, and there's some great people behind the scenes that are again, integral to building the club and making what it is. Having an opportunity to meet Bobby Smirniotis and Costa and things like that, you get the sense of people that are really trying to build something special, and really determined to take this club to places right now. I mean, right now, what they're doing in CONCACAF League and getting to the quarters, and it's a good chance that they can win their tie against their Costa Rican opponents and get to Champions League, which within 3 years to get to Champions League proper is quite impressive. And you have to kind of put your hands up. And a lot of those guys are Sigma guys that grew up with Bobby and Keith. You probably know a lot of those guys personally,
like Kyle and Mo, a couple of guys.
Yeah, exactly, right. So those guys, it's good to see even the old, like even the quote unquote older guys, that they're not older, you know what I mean, like, you know what I mean, like Kyle and Mo and guys who've gone through sort of the system, and end up in a great place, like in Hamilton. It's great to see, right? It's an opportunity, again, like I said, and I've used that word a lot when it comes to the CPL, but it really is. It gave me an opportunity to be in football, and I think that's the other side of the coin that we don't think about sometimes. We always think about the players and the coaches, but administrators and people that want to cut their teeth and get into the football industry in this country. It's given a lot of those people an opportunity to have a job, and learn and see what it's like. So the league is doing a lot, not just from a player development perspective, but a coaching perspective and an administrator perspective as well.
That's amazing. I think you kind of just touched upon it as well with the men's national team. I think as a whole, we can talk maybe about the success of the women over the summer and then the men right now with the World Cup qualifying. How amazing is it to see? We just talked to Richie Larea about a week ago, I think it was, Keith. We just had him on about a week ago, and he was talking about it, and we were just like, it's almost like goosebumps feels about how proud and how amazing that they're doing.
Yeah, for as somebody who's a fan of the national team, it's an incredible time. We were talking about this on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, myself and Sean. Just when have you ever seen a national team this stacked, where you literally could go look at the forward position and be like, I don't know who's actually going to start, because they're all in form, they're all playing at big clubs, across the world, and we tried to make it 11 ahead of I think it was the USA game or the Panama game, the El Salvador game, try to figure out what the 11 was. And we actually had a hard time putting together 11. It's like, when was the time that you could sit there and say, like, okay, I could put in an 11 and be like, oh, I don't know if this guy can start because this guy's hot right now. Like, how could you drop Tejan Buchanan because this player, like maybe you need Junior Hoyland in here because of it. Like, you realize after a while, you're like, wow, the work that's been done is starting to pay off. And you're starting to see, and there's guys, and again, I think the CPL is going to help with that down the road, right? As the league gets older and more mature, you're going to see sort of that depth chart go from like, okay, you have 2 or 3 guys in a position where you're now like, I've got 5 or 6 players deep, at certain positions, and that's a good problem for John Herdman to have eventually. As hopefully we can push to Qatar and get to 2022, but obviously with a home World Cup coming in 2026, it's that only bodes well for the program going forward.
Would you make the trip to Qatar?
I don't know if I have that kind of money. you want to sponsor me to go? I'd love if somebody sponsors me to go. I don't know if I could. Hey, look, in a perfect scenario, I'd love to go, but realistically, I'm probably gonna have to watch it from home, especially if it's gonna be a holiday World Cup.
So strange.
It's gonna be a winter World Cup, but I mean, look, obviously, if the team makes it, and I think they legitimately can, I really think they can finish in a top 3 spot. Obviously they've got the next round of qualifying in the next couple of weeks, the next week and a half almost, before they play their next game against Mexico. But I really do think they can qualify. And I really do think that they can get there and they can make some noise. And that would be an amazing thing to see. And I think that's the springboard, really, because I kind of almost look at it like how the United States kind of trajectory, right? They got to Italia 90. and that was kind of the springboard. And after that, they got a home World Cup in '94, and they hosted exactly, and then it was kind of a trajectory where they made the World Cup every single year until
it's also lining up with the age of this group of players. I think the 2026 one lines up perfectly with some of the age we have. Those guys will be in their primes, and young players that are going to be coming through. I think it's going to be great. I think they're on a great trajectory right now. So
yeah, absolutely. And the other thing too is that like it's not you could say like countries have golden generations that come through, and then the next generation after that is kind of like now like you just see no end.
Yeah, I know.
Right? Like even if some of these players, you can move on for some of these players. There's just other players that are coming up right now that are going to fill in and step up and be just as good. So that's the encouraging thing to me.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm looking forward to
I can't wait.
The game's coming up this week. It's going to be good. I can't wait to see them against Mexico, because the way they played against them at Gold Cup was like, especially a couple players, they played very well. I'm looking forward to them.
No Alfonso Davies, no Jonathan David, right? No Atiba Hutchinson in that one, and they held their own. Yes, okay, Mexico didn't have Raul Jimenez, they didn't have Chucky Lozano, but at the same time, I think you played as pretty close to an A Mexico squad as you could get, and took them right down to the wire, and arguably a questionable penalty, but like but still,
it's a safe space here. It's a safe.
Like I'm not gonna say I didn't almost throw something at a TV at one point, but like it's just one of those things where that game, even in the last World Cup cycle, would not have
exactly.
The team wouldn't have been there yet.
No, not at all. And like it's amazing. So think that like they're going down to Azteca, and to think as a fan watching, we can think we can get a result down there.
Yeah,
you can get a result.
It'll be tough. It'll be tough. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy. It's going to be tough, but
they're going down there knowing like they know that
they can get a result. Yeah,
amazing.
I don't know if Jimenez is going to be able to travel.
Oh, that's right. Well, no, he won't be able to play.
Because I read earlier that Junior Hoylett's not able to go to that game either.
Won't. Yeah, and Wolves are definitely not going to let him miss that many matches on the way back. So
yeah, well, that's a positive sign at least.
We'll see. All right, Mike, we're just gonna finish off here. We got a little couple of fun quick hitters for you before you go.
All right, yeah, for sure, man.
Finish off. So first one, best away day story, if you have one with TFC.
Oh, best away day story. There's a couple. I'll say this: the first time I went to Chicago away with Kings of the North was just an amazing time.
Yeah.
I won't get into all the details, but just it was a great experience. We actually didn't win that match, but I think the one thing about away days that I really love is you go down, you meet not just people in your own supporter group, but other fans that have come down and support the team, and it was really you're all together, you all travel together, you all end up commiserating together or celebrating together at a pub. So that was really great. If I could also maybe go as the time we went to Montreal in 2017, I think this would have been, or 2016, and being on the metro with 100 or so TFC fans in a car, and we're just all bouncing up and down, making the car shake and technically derailed. That was a little scary, but also fun.
That's amazing. Awesome. Okay, you kind of answered the one during the pod about the best BMO Field experience. So you'd say Montreal, that Montreal game?
Yeah, probably that. It's tied for that, and probably the Seba goal against the Red Bulls for the first playoff spot. I think just the relief that, okay, it's done, it's happening, they're finally going. Like it was just, I think that was, and it was just a great goal too. Just the fact that he just took out 3 or 4, 5 defenders to score that goal it's probably also one of the best goals I've ever seen at the stadium.
Are you happy he's back?
Is he back yet?
I don't know. What's he doing hanging around?
His family live here.
I think he has a home here.
Yeah, he has a home in Oakville or something like that. Yeah.
All right, next
So
one. Favorite pre-game spot, or kind of like, or even talk about some of those. I see you guys. There's some of the marches you guys have done before together. There's kind of some things you guys do before the game all together and afterwards.
yeah, for I can only speak specifically for Kings of the North, but we'll go to something like the Wheat Chief before the game.
Okay, yeah.
We used to have a post game bar in Liberty Village, but the pandemic, it was a victim of the pandemic. So unfortunately, it's no longer around. It was Locust 144.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was just a great spot to go after games, and it would be ram packed before games, after games. And before that we'll obviously have a pint, talk about the game before. Now we'll walk down from King and Bathurst to the game, and then afterwards, we'll probably either head back, or sometimes we'll go to Brazen Head afterwards, and again have a pint and talk about the game and things like that. Marches, there haven't been as many marches this year. Obviously, I think the overall, just the way the team's been going, and it hasn't happened. But in the past, you link up with other supporter groups and obviously do the marches and stuff, and those are always fun.
That's cool. All right, this one, let's see what your thoughts are on this. If you could make one move you'd like to see this offseason for the club to make, player-wise, anything, what would it be, you think? One move they need to make.
Ooh. Okay, so this might be a tough one for me personally, because I actually like Ali Kurd. I've met him, and I really like him as a person. But I think as a head coach, I think the club needs somebody who has a gravitas to them in terms of being able to command respect in a room with a lot of veteran guys. And I think they need somebody to come in and be the manager and do that. That's no disrespect to Javier Perez or anything like that. Like, I think he's done a decent job sort of being put into, I don't want to say an impossible situation, but a situation that he couldn't have envisioned when he took the job originally. But somebody like a Bob Bradley, if you can get a Bob Bradley in there, I think you have to kind of look at that. And that might mean you may have to get him, you may have to give him a title outside of head coach. So I don't know. I feel something like that needs to happen in order to sort of, because I think this team can still contend. I don't think it's in a position where it needs to tear everything down and rebuild everything.
No, I don't think
I don't think it's in that position, but I think you need somebody with that kind of gravitas. But at the same time, we also said that about Greg Vanny in his first year, and then look what happened. So not to say that lightning strikes twice, but that's what I feel the club may need.
Okay.
Fair.
Do you have a favorite chant, and even talk about to us how some of these chants, how they come together and all this stuff? I hear you guys singing.
There are more talented chant writers than me. I'm not a great chant writer.
Okay, I was gonna say, I'm like, some of them they got going on are crazy.
That's not me. That is not me. I'm good at being a capo. I'm good at repeating the words and getting people to chant along. But I guess for me, my favorite is the Shanana, getting everybody together, link shoulders together and sway back and forth. It's a great energy pickup. And I think obviously it's COVID time, so a little bit different, but prior to that, when you're doing that, it really just, as I say it in the capo stand, it doesn't matter whether the person beside you, when you're in the stands and you're supporting TFC, you're family. And having people link shoulders like that and do that really does bring people together and sort of galvanizes that. And I also tend to find out when we do that, we play really well and score. Like we did that the other night, and Schaffelberg immediately scored. So I kind of feel like that's a good luck charm to start the second half. So
amazing. All
right. That's a good one. I think chants are just like next level. Like
I love
people who come up with them and like the creative. Obviously, a lot of clubs like mimic each other, and like a lot of clubs use the same ones, and some are like very specific to their team. But the idea that like everybody can have like the same chant, but one word's change and just creates an atmosphere is really cool to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, this one I'm interested, since I know you've been up to know, is if you could pick a best 11 of TFC players all time, who would it be?
Okay.
Let's go for
goalkeeper. Goalkeeper, I'm going to go actually Stefan Fry. I don't think we should have ever let him go. But the business is the business.
Yeah.
So Stefan Fry. Right back is going to be Stephen Beitashour. Again, one of those players that shouldn't have let go, but the business is the business.
Yeah.
Center back, it's gonna be controversial. I'm taking Daniil Henry as one of my center backs. I think that obviously academy product, and it's great that he's one of the first out, or I think the first out. But I think that also, if he had been able to stay here, and stay healthy, he's had a great career. Obviously, he's doing well in Korea right now. But he's one of those players that I wish could have stayed at TFC a bit longer and continue to develop. Yeah. Beside him, I'm taking Drew Moore as center back. I think somebody who's a great communicator, great organizer in the back, and just great overall human being. Yeah, really great. Yeah. Left back, that's going to be tough because two of my favorite people are at that position. Justin Moore and Ashton Morgan. So it's kind of tough. I gotta pick between one of the two. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Justin. Sorry, Ash. First off the bench though. He's my first off the bench. But I'm gonna go with Justin. I think in a lot of ways, him coming to the club in 2013 was the catalyst to start the sort of change into what TFC has become. In a lot of ways, he was the guy, and that again, that's really hard because you can easily make the argument that Ashton Morgan could have fit in that role over those years and done the same job, right? So, tough one. That's probably going to be one of my toughest decisions, but I'm going to go with Justin there. What formation are we playing, by the way? Are we playing 4-3-3?
You're the coach.
Okay, all right. Well, okay, you gotta go midfield. You're gonna have a holder. You're gonna have Michael Bradley. I don't think I need to say much more. Iron Man, captain. Right? Yeah, done it. If I'm gonna go, I'm gonna play probably. I'm probably gonna. It's going to 4 at the back. So I've gone 4 at the back. So I'm gonna probably have to do 2 holders. As a holder, I'm probably gonna put. Oh, now this is going to get real tough.
You were flying at the beginning. I was
flying. Now I'm thinking, ooh, now there's some guys in the past that I could probably put in there.
Midfielders that have been.
Yeah, I know.
Wasn't Torsten Frings was there?
Well, that's what I'm thinking as a holder is if I'm putting Torsten beside Michael.
You had. Trying to think of other ones.
Yeah. You know what? I will go Torsten. Beside Michael Bradley, though he came later in his career, I think if he has a partner like Michael, then I think you really see the best out of him. So I'm going to go with that. So I'm going 4-2-3. So Oso's in there as part of my 3 because I'm going 4-2-3-1. Then I'm going with Oso in there. At wing. If I'm going to put somebody out on the wing, Seba, even though he's not a winger, I know he's not a winger.
But he can play out there,
But he can play out there, and you can formations change throughout games, so you can make it work. So Seba's out there. My other midfielder. What am I putting out there? Josie's up top.
Josie up top. Okay.
Josie up top. Though Danny Coovermans is a close second. I think.
Money.
Danny when he was healthy and fit was money. And then my last midfielder, I kind of have a pick that's like it's off the board. No one's ever going to pick this player.
We love that. We love that at the Just Offside podcast.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with João Plata. I know not everybody loved João.
That's a very good pick.
Yeah, I know.
If I saw João do to people, sometimes it was unbelievable.
I love João. I love João. I know a lot of people. I know how things ended at TFC wasn't the best for him, but I just in terms of a player that he was one of the first players that we had that played on a regular basis that could just beat people one-on-one and just really just do like you know, Keith, you said it yourself, right? Like,
yeah, it's just like you would never expect, obviously small guy, but his fight and desire was like crazy, and the skills.
Yeah.
Like,
and people forget, like, he scored some big goals for his club. Like, he scored like some massive goals. And I'm missing people out like D-Row. I'm missing obviously people like Amado Guevara back in the day and Danny Dickio and stuff like that. But I think
we know those legends. We know the legends.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, you know, from an 11, that's mine. You know, my first off the bench obviously is probably D-Row, and I probably actually stick him up top.
It's Ashton. You said Ashton first off the bench.
I did say Ashton. Sorry, Ash. See, I'm doing Ash 30, man. But yeah, that's probably that's my 11. I'm sticking to it.
Okay,
that's a good one.
Yeah,
that's true. And before we go, we have to just quickly chat, since we're both United fans. I need your thoughts on our club right now. United, Man U. What are your thoughts right now? Oli, everything, Ronaldo coming back. What are your thoughts quickly on the club?
Yeah, I think if I'll put it this way. I think if we're 4th or 5th come Christmas time, I think Oli might be in a bit of trouble. And that doesn't even include the Champions League, because again, if we don't get into the round of 16 for the Champions League, I think he's really in trouble.
Anytime, yeah.
I you know, it's, you know, from a United fan, I'm conflicted about the Ronaldo thing. But I will say that it's good to have him back, in a sense that you do have that goal poacher. Obviously, he's going to score goals, right?
Yeah.
But he's not the guy you need, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have Cavani. I still believe in Martial. Like, I think that you needed to really address the midfield. I think you really needed to address the midfield, and McFred.
What a combo.
You know, is just yeah, because I mean, like, you know, I actually don't mind Scott McTominay. I think he actually is a decent player. Yeah, but I think you need a midfielder that can, like, I'm not saying you got to go out and get N'Golo Kante. If you can get N'Golo Kante and get Chelsea to give him up, which they would never do, but if you can get like somebody that can actually just dominate a midfield, right? And you just don't have that right now. And I think you even saw it on the tying goal, right? Like, Fred tried to go into that challenge with Damari Gray and just got bunks off a ball. You know, like, it's just like, come on, you know, like, if you're gonna go in there, foul him, right? Like,
you should have just
take the yellow. Yeah. Right. So that's the thing, right? It's just those moments where, you know, United just need somebody who can come in and control a game, because going forward, they're fine, right? They're going to score goals. You know, they're going to score goals. And yes, they sometimes have trouble breaking teams down that sit deep in 2 blocks of 4 and really are going to just pack in, but they eventually find a way through. My problem is that sometimes in these moments, you need a midfielder that can just step on the ball and not allow these counterattacks to happen, and just keep the pressure on. And they have these moments, and those moments always end up in just wild ass goals. And it's you know, like, you know, and it was even like, even during the week, right? Watching Champions League. I didn't get to watch the whole game because I was working, but, you know, watching what I watched, you know, Villarreal realistically kind of got robbed here. They probably should have won that game. They should have won that game.
Yeah.
And the amount of chances they had in the first half, United could have easily been 3-0 down easy in the first half. So I really do think that the club need to think about, I get why you sign Ronaldo. If you get a chance to sign Ronaldo, you sign Ronaldo. I get it. Yeah. But at the same time, they got to address that midfield, and they got to give Sancho a run of games, because it's one thing, you know, what's the point in signing him if you're not giving him a run of games in the 11? So, I mean, right now our Lord and Savior Mason Greenwood is basically keeping us alive right now, really, right? Like that's the guy right now to me, along with Ronaldo. But that midfield needs to get sorted, and you know, defensively, I think once you can get that, then I think it takes a lot of pressure off Maguire and Lindelof, and having asked Raphael Varane to sort of save them every time defensively. And a lot of those goals happen in bad transition moments, right? So
we'll see. Tough. We got a tough schedule coming up the next couple of months, so it's definitely Judgment Day for Ali. We'll see.
Well, you need that. You needed 3 points today, realistically, right? Like the stretch they're going in, you need 3 points.
Yeah. Need them. But we'll see. But Mike, Thank you very, very much. This was dope. This is a really cool.
Yeah, this is really cool.
You.
Yeah.
And appreciate you coming on, taking some time. I know you're with family today, so we're gonna let you go. But before you go, if you want to just plug anything you need to plug, whether it's podcast wise, your Twitter, Instagram, all that, just plug that.
Yeah, not a ton to plug other than, we do the House on Lakeshore podcast from the TFC Biopic Coalition. Follow us at TFC Biopic Fans on Twitter. We drop the podcast, usually do 2 a month. So you can find us on Spotify, on Apple Pod, on all the platforms. You can find us there. Other than that, if you want to follow me, at Football Saves on Twitter. I talk football, all the time. CPL, TFC, Premier League. That's really it. Not a ton to plug, but obviously, if you're interested in some of the work that we're trying to do in the BIPOC Coalition, definitely give at TFC BIPOC Fans a follow. And we'll always be posting stuff. What's happening in the world and what's happening in the world of football, and opportunities to connect with the club. Hopefully, actually, now I'm thinking about it with things to plug. We hopefully will have sort of another open town hall meeting with MLSE, talking about their strategies around sort of working in an anti-racist framework and some of the things that they're going to be doing from that perspective. And we've been a part of those conversations as well as trying to drive that policy. So when we have another opportunity to sort of have one of those open town halls, then definitely follow the Twitter, because we'll put out the date and time for that.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Mike, you want to close this out?
That was another episode of the Just Offside podcast with myself, Mike Pavella.
Keith McCubia signing off. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.